Welcome to StopFake, the place where we identify fakes and debunk them to set the record straight on disinformation about Ukraine. I'm Marko Suprun, and this week we bring you the following stories. Kyiv gives up Crimea. Hungarian Foreign Minister threatens Ukraine with NATO troops. Ukraine responsible for dangerous emissions in Crimea. And the Ukrainian President's wife finds true Ukrainian identity in the United States. So let's get to it. By terminating the bilateral friendship treaty with Russia, Ukraine is giving up on Crimea and Sevastopol, announced Konstantin Zatulin, the hardline imperialist deputy chairman of Russia's State Duma Committee for CIS Affairs, in an interview to the pro-Kremlin online publication Ukraina.ru. According to Zatulin, after terminating the treaty, official Kyiv lost all legal grounds for the return of the Crimean Peninsula annexed by Moscow in 2014. Zatulin claims that by terminating the Ukraine-Russia treaty, Ukraine is negating its own claims for the return of Crimea. The significance of the treaty was in recognizing the borders between Ukraine and Russia, with Crimea and Sevastopol being part of Ukraine. Without the treaty, Ukraine has no grounds to object to Russia's taking Crimea, Zatulin said. Ratified in 1998, the treaty sets out the principles of strategic partnership, the inviolability of existing borders, respect for territorial integrity, and an obligation not to use one nation's territory to damage the other's security. Now, Article 2 of the treaty states, as friendly, equal, and sovereign states, the parties shall base their relations upon mutual respect and trust, strategic partnership, and cooperation. Zatulin's claims are distorted and fake. Russia patently ignored the friendship treaty when it annexed Crimea and invaded eastern Ukraine in 2014, violating the main provisions of the bilateral agreement. Zatulin has long advocated for the Russian annexation of Crimea, bragging that no legal considerations could prevent Russia from such a step. Zatulin was notorious for making inflammatory statements demanding Crimea be returned to Russia, as he considered the 1954 transfer of the peninsula to Ukrainian jurisdiction illegal. In the summer of 2008, the Ukrainian Security Service banned Zatulin from entering the country because of his hostile anti-Ukrainian calls. This week, several Ukrainian and Russian sites disseminated fakes claiming that the Hungarian Foreign Minister threatened Ukraine with NATO troops. In reality, Hungary's Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó made no such threats. He merely said that if Ukraine were to expel Hungary's consul, Budapest would have to follow suit. During last week's United Nations General Assembly session, Minister Szijjártó gave an interview to the Russia 24 state-owned news channel. In the 10-minute segment that aired, the interview focuses on Ukrainian-Hungarian relations, and Szijjártó says that giving Hungarian passports to Ukrainian citizens with Hungarian roots, something that Hungary has been doing, is not illegal, and should Ukraine expel the Hungarian consul in protest, Hungary will answer in kind. The interviewer asks Szijjártó about Ukraine's redeployment of one of its military brigades closer to the Hungarian border. Szijjártó asks what is the point of deploying a brigade on the border with a NATO country, and goes on to say that this is a question for the Ukrainians and that he always tries to avoid interfering in the internal affairs of another state. There is not even a suggestion of a threat to Ukraine, and certainly not with NATO troops. Scores of Russian media reported this week that a levee on Ukrainian territory separating Lake Sivash from an acid waste accumulator facility belonging to the Crimean Titan chemical factory in the northern Crimean town of Armyansk was partially destroyed. Their source, Crimean Titan factory director Andrei Akulov. The 7-kilometer protective levee straddles the Ukrainian mainland and the Crimean Peninsula, with roughly half of the structure located on each side. Akulov's claim comes on the footsteps of the plant spewing unknown substances into the atmosphere, leading to the evacuation of thousands of children from northern Crimea. Crimean occupation authorities have not come clean as to what exactly happened and are currently pushing the destroyed levee theory as one of several possible explanations for the harmful emissions. Akulov said half of the levee is on Crimean territory, the other half on the territory of Ukraine. Part of the levee's Ukrainian section is destroyed, Akulov announced. Meanwhile, Deputy Director of the Kherson Regional Administration Vadim Chaban told Radio Liberty that Akulov's claim has no basis in fact. The Ukrainian part of the levee was inspected and there is no damage to the structure, he pointed out. Kherson province is Ukraine's southern region, which borders on Crimea. The Crimean Center for Journalistic Investigation, part of the Global Investigative Journalism Network, traveled to check out the state of the levee and published its photos and a video showing the structure to be whole and completely intact. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko's wife Marina allegedly said that true Ukrainian identity is found in the United States. This claim was disseminated by the pro-Kremlin sites Ukraina.ru, Times.com.ua, and SMI2.ua, all of whom referred to the Ukrainian president's press office as the source of their claim. According to these Russian sites, Marina Poroshenko allegedly said this when she visited the Ukrainian Museum and Library in Stamford, Connecticut. Mrs. Poroshenko was accompanying her husband to the United States for the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly. Ukraina.ru quotes the Ukrainian president's wife as saying, "Being here, one feels that this cultural institution was created and is supported by people who love Ukraine, respect its people, and value Ukrainian history and art." The presidential press office announcement really does feature this sentence. Mrs. Poroshenko was referring to the Ukrainian identity preserved outside of Ukraine and emphasized that the Ukrainian Museum and Library in Stamford have preserved Ukrainian historical and cultural heritage outside of Ukraine. Russian media took Marina Poroshenko's words out of context and attributed to her something she never said. That's it for this week. You can find more dissected disinformation on our website, StopFake.org. Be vigilant and don't consume fakes. If you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, as always, send it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko Suprun and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.